In a world where we take freedom for granted, imagine living where a single touch, a simple guiding gesture, can end your career and destroy your family. In March 2023, a North Korean official witnessed something that would change his life forever. A colleague making physical contact with Kim Jong-un's daughter for less than 2 seconds. That momentary touch triggered a cascade of fear, disappeared careers, and ultimately, one family's desperate escape. This is the testimony of a 25-year Pyongyang insider who chose freedom over silence. If these stories matter to you, please subscribe and hit the notification bell. Your support helps us bring these untold stories to light. Together, we can be a voice for those who cannot speak. Let me tell you about my last spring in Pyongyang. March 2023, my apartment was in Pyongyang's central district. Every morning, I'd open the window and look toward the Taedong River. The water flowed. The sun rose. People headed to work. An ordinary scene. But beneath that ordinary surface, tension never left. I worked in the propaganda department of the Korean Workers' Party. Mid-level official. 25 years on the job. I'd graduated from Kim Il-sung University and was assigned to the party. My parents were from a loyal family, so my life had been smooth. I lived in central Pyongyang. Got my rations on time. Could educate my children. But living in Pyongyang doesn't mean everything's good. One morning at breakfast, my wife spoke. Another official disappeared recently. Where did you hear that? At the market. Everyone's talking. Same thing happened last year. She didn't say more. I didn't ask. In 30 years of marriage, we'd learned not to say certain things. My son looked up from his rice. Father, are you doing field guidance today? Yes. You're at the office? They want me to organize reports. He'd been discharged from the military last year. Thanks to me, he got placed in a party organization. It was good news, but it was also a heavy burden. If I stayed loyal, my son stayed safe. If I made a mistake, my son was in danger. In North Korea, family is both blessing and hostage. On my way to work, I ran into another official from my floor in the elevator. We just nodded. No words. We used to joke around, talk about our families. Now everyone was careful. Why? Word had spread among officials. The walls have ears. At the office, my colleagues were already gathered. The director called me over. Comrade, there's an important assignment today. Yes, sir? The marshal is visiting a military construction site. You'll accompany him. My heart dropped. Field guidance with Kim Jong-un. It was an honor. It was also dangerous. Do well, you get promoted. Make a mistake, you're finished. You'll handle the documentation and report. Be careful. Understood. I'd done this job for nearly 30 years. Accompanied Kim Jong-un on field guidance dozens of times. Recorded footage, planned events, wrote reports. I knew the routine, but knowing it didn't make it safe. The more familiar the task, the more careful you had to be. One mistake, one line in a report, it could change your life. At lunch in the cafeteria, officials at the next table were whispering, "Today's special." What do you mean? Comrade Ju-ae is coming too. I almost dropped my spoon. Kim Ju-ae, Kim Jong-un's daughter. The girl we called respected Comrade Ju-ae. She'd been appearing more often in recent years. Military events, anniversaries. Everyone knew what it meant. They were preparing her to be the successor. But I'd never heard of her coming to a construction site. Before leaving that afternoon, I stopped in the bathroom, looked in the mirror. A 55-year-old man stared back. Gray streaks in my hair, deep lines around my eyes. Still living with this kind of tension at this age. How much longer would my children have to live like this? Would I ever see my grandchildren? The thought passed through my mind. On the drive to the site, I watched through the window. Pyongyang streets rolled by. Clean buildings, wide roads, people walking. From the outside, a peaceful city. But I knew better. Everyone living in this city was tied by invisible threads. Those threads could be pulled at any moment. When they were pulled, it was over. We arrived at the site. Soldiers stood in formation. Officials waited, faces tense. Cameras were set up. Shovels and excavators stood ready. This wasn't a groundbreaking ceremony. It was a performance, a stage for Kim Jong-un. And today there was a special guest star. I took out my notebook and found my position. I had to record everything for the report. The convoy arrived. The door opened. Kim Jong-un stepped out. Behind him, a small shadow followed. Kim Ju-ae. She looked about 15, dressed in black, standing next to her father, about the same age as my daughter. For a moment, I felt like a father. This child didn't choose this either. Couldn't choose where she was born. Couldn't choose her life. But at the same time, another thought came. How many people would be sacrificed for her? The event began. That day, I witnessed something I'd never forget. Kim Jong-un started touring the site. His entourage followed. Cameras rolled. Soldiers saluted. The usual scene. But today was different. Kim Ju-ae walked beside her father. I stood at a distance, writing in my notebook. Time, movements, key remarks, atmosphere. Had to record everything. Secretary No Guangchul approached me. Pay special attention to today's report. Yes, sir. Comrade Ju-ae is participating. Record every scene carefully, especially her movements and activities. Understood. The realization hit me. This wasn't just a site visit. This was for the record. A production to show Kim Ju-ae as a leader who works, a successor who stands with the people. My report would become propaganda material later. Broadcast on Korean Central TV. Published in Rodong Sinmun. Written into history. Kim Jong-un picked up a shovel. He made a show of digging with the soldiers. Cameras moved in close. Flashes went off. Then a shovel was handed to Kim Ju-ae. The 15-year-old girl took it. She looked a bit awkward. The weight seemed to catch her off guard. She readjusted her grip. The officials around her watched, faces tense. I held my breath. Kim Ju-ae stood there holding the shovel, but she seemed uncertain about where to go, what to do. She stood still for a moment, looking around. That moment felt long. Her father Kim Jong-un was ahead of her, posing for cameras with his shovel. Soldiers around him were going through the motions of working. Kim Ju-ae stood alone. To me, she just looked like a young girl, my daughter's age. An age that doesn't fully understand the adult world yet. But here I couldn't see her that way. She was respected comrade Ju-ae. She was Paektu bloodline. She might be the future supreme leader. That's when it happened. No Guangchul moved. He was a party secretary who'd accompanied Kim Jong-un for years. Early 60s. An experienced official. He walked toward Kim Ju-ae. My instincts kicked in. A sense that something might go wrong. No stood beside Kim Ju-ae. He seemed to be explaining something. Probably telling her to go over there and dig. And then, in that moment, his hand touched her back. It must have been to guide her direction. A natural gesture. Like an adult showing a child which way to go. But this was North Korea. And that child was Paektu bloodline. Time seemed to stop. No's hand was on Kim Ju-ae's back for maybe 1-2 seconds. He quickly withdrew it. Kim Ju-ae walked in the direction he'd indicated. The cameras were filming Kim Jong-un. I didn't know if they caught this moment, but I saw it. So did the other officials nearby. I glanced at the state security officer standing next to me. His expression had frozen. I had to manage my own face. Had to look like I'd seen nothing. I pretended to write in my notebook. My hand was shaking. That man is finished. The thought came instinctively. North Korea has laws that aren't written down. But everyone knows them. Paektu bloodline is not touched by non-family members. A principle handed down since Kim Il-sung's time. Not by bodyguards, not by doctors, not by officials. No one touches them carelessly. To protect them, out of consideration? No. Because they're sacred bloodline. Untouchable. No Guangchul couldn't have been unaware. He'd served the top leadership for over 30 years. So why did he do it? Was it a momentary lapse? Or was the gesture so natural that he did it unconsciously? The reason didn't matter. In North Korea, intent isn't recorded. Only the action. Did he touch her or not? That's all that gets recorded. The event continued. Kim Ju-ae made a show of digging with the shovel. Cameras captured it. Kim Jong-un looked around, appearing satisfied. On the surface, a successful event. But I knew an invisible incident had begun at this site today. After the event ended, the entourage prepared to leave. I still stood there with my notebook. Had to record until the last scene. Kim Jong-un and Kim Ju-ae got into their car. The convoy departed. Only officials and soldiers remained on site. The tension in the air eased slightly, but not completely. I stood at a distance scanning the officials' faces. Everyone was managing their expressions, but their eyes told a different story. You saw it, didn't you? I saw it too. Without words, we all knew. No Guangchul was organizing his documents as if nothing had happened, but his hands trembled slightly. He knew what he'd done. On the drive back to Pyongyang, I stared out the window. A colleague tried to make conversation. I gave short answers. My mind was elsewhere. What do I write in the report? That was the problem in front of me. I couldn't write everything. Couldn't write Secretary No Guangchul touched Comrade Ju-ae's back. But I couldn't leave it out completely either. Others had seen it. If someone reported it, I'd become the official who omitted from his report. When I got back to the office, the sun was setting. Colleagues left one by one. I stayed behind to write the report. Alone in the empty office, I sat at my computer, opened the report template. Date, location, attendees, main schedule. I filled it in mechanically. Then my hand stopped at main observations. What should I write? Comrade Zhu AI participated directly in the site work, digging alongside soldiers, demonstrating the image of a laboring people. Would that be enough? But this was only half the truth. Secretary No Guangchol guided Comrade Zhu's movements. I got that far and deleted it. Tried again. Officials carefully assisted Comrade Zhu's site activities. Deleted that too. I checked the clock. Past 10 p.m. Called home. Honey, I'll be late. Writing a report? Did you eat? Not yet. Go to bed without me. Be careful coming home. Worry edged her voice. I turned back to the screen. The report wasn't just a document. It was a record that would determine someone's fate. Every line I wrote was connected to No Guangchol's life, but it was also connected to mine. If I wrote about that scene, what would happen? The higher-ups would ask why I didn't report it immediately on site. Why didn't I intervene? Then I'd be held responsible. I was the site supervisor. If I didn't write it, if this fact came to light through other channels later, I'd become the official who covered it up. That was also the end. This was North Korea. Write the truth, you're in danger. Hide it, you're in more danger. In the end, I wrote this. Comrade Zhu directly used labor tools on site, demonstrating unity with the people. Officials' assistance proceeded smoothly. Proceeded smoothly. An ambiguous phrase. Could be read as true, could be read as not. I submitted the report. That night when I got home, my wife was waiting. Did something happen? Nothing special. You don't look well. Just tired. I lay in bed but couldn't sleep. Stared at the ceiling. What was No Guangchol feeling right now? Did he go home and tell his family? Or was he alone with his worries like me? A thought suddenly came. What am I doing? I'd worked for the party for nearly 30 years. Been loyal. Been devoted. Made my family live within this system. But today I glossed over one person's fate with an ambiguous sentence. Didn't save him. Didn't report him. Just avoided it. Because that's how I'd learned to survive. My wife was sleeping beside me. My son and daughter were sleeping in their rooms. To protect this family, I had to keep living this way. But a thought crept in. Is this really protecting my family? I stayed awake all night. The next morning on my way to work, I ran into the official from my building again in the elevator. Our eyes met. We didn't speak, but we knew. You saw it yesterday. I saw it too. We won't say a word. The elevator doors closed. 3 days passed. No Guangchol still came to work. Attended meetings as usual. Reviewed documents. Prepared for guidance duties. Nothing seemed wrong on the surface. But the atmosphere had changed. The way officials treated No had shifted subtly. When he spoke in meetings, people listened but didn't make eye contact. At lunch, when he entered the cafeteria, seats quietly emptied around him. Nothing overt, just gradually, naturally. This was the first stage of how people disappeared in North Korea. I avoided him too. When we passed in the hallway, I'd just nod and keep walking. Before we'd stop and chat. Not anymore. Why? Because standing next to that person, you might get dragged down with him. In North Korea, there's a saying, try to save a drowning person, you drown too. So everyone just watches from a distance. About a week later, the director called me in. Comrade, about that site report. My heart sank. Yes, the higher-ups are requesting a supplemental report. Write it in more detail and resubmit. Which part should I elaborate on? Comrade Zhu site activities. Movements, activity details surrounding assistance, be specific. My hand shook. Understood. Back at my desk, I sat at the computer. Supplemental report. I knew what this meant. Someone had seen something. Wanted confirmation. I recalled that day again. The scene of Kim Ju-ae standing with the shovel. The moment No Guangchol approached. His hand touching her back for 1-2 seconds. What should I write? Secretary No Guangchol guided Comrade Zhu's site movements and touched her back. Write that, and it's over. The end for No Guangchol. Maybe the end for me too. While Comrade Zhu toured the site, accompanying officials assisted nearby. Write that? Too vague. The higher-ups would ask again. Lunchtime came, but I didn't go to the cafeteria. Had no appetite. I looked out the office window. Pyongyang street stretched below. People walking. Cars passing. Sunlight shining. An ordinary scene. But how many people in this ordinary city were holding their breath? People like me, agonizing over one line in a report. People like No Guangchol, anxious over one gesture. People suspected just for standing nearby. This was how North Korea operated. Control through uncertainty, not clear laws. Since you never know when or how something might become a problem, Everyone stays careful. And in staying careful, you end up watching each other. That evening when I got home, my son asked, "Father, do you know Secretary No Guangchol?" "Why?" "There's talk at the office. Something about a problem." "Who's saying that?" Everyone's whispering. No one knows for sure. I looked at my son, 28 years old, just starting his career. And already he was learning this. How to listen to rumors. Read the room. Stay careful. Son, yes, don't talk carelessly at the office. Especially don't mention other people's names. Why? Just do as I say. He nodded. Didn't ask more. He'd learned that too. When adults don't explain, don't push. That night, my wife asked, "You've looked so worn out lately." "Work's complicated. Take care of yourself. At least take some medicine." Medicine. Medicine was scarce in North Korea. Even Pyongyang's privileged class struggled to get proper medication. My wife had saved up medicine in case I got sick. A thought came to me. Would this person, my family, have to live with this anxiety their whole lives? In a country where getting one pill is hard, where one line in a report could cost you your life? The next day, I submitted the supplemental report, as detailed as possible, but left out the key point: time, location, personnel, movements, activities. Wrote it all, but I didn't write about No's contact. Instead, I wrote, during Comrade Jue's site activities, accompanying officials maintained appropriate distance while assisting, though the nature of the site required moments of movement guidance. Another vague sentence, but it was the best I could do. Not fully reporting No Guangchol, not fully protecting him either. After submitting the report, I went to the bathroom. Looked in the mirror, a 55-year-old man, looking tired. A thought came. Am I a coward? Then I realized, no, this system makes all of us into cowards. A month passed. No Guangchol still came to work, but he started getting excluded from key meetings. Rumors circulated that he'd been advised to rest for health reasons. Everyone knew this was the beginning of the end. The process of how officials disappeared in North Korea went like this. First, they're removed from key meetings. Then their workload decreases. Then they're told to take time off for rest or study. And one day, they just don't show up. Later, you'd hear transferred to the provinces or retired due to health. But no one ever knew what really happened. One day, the director called me in again. Comrade, new assignment. Yes, sir. Comrade Jue's public activities are increasing. You'll be the dedicated recorder. My mind raced. Was this a promotion or a test? It's an honor. Be careful. This is important work. Back at my desk, I thought. Dedicated recorder for Kim Ju-am. This meant I was taking No Guangchol's position. And it also meant I'd be exposed to the same risks. That evening, I went home early. My family was eating dinner. Oh, you're home early today? Yeah. Wanted to eat with my family. I sat at the table. Rice my wife made. Kimchi, soybean paste stew, an ordinary meal. But I felt how precious this ordinary moment was. My son spoke between bites. Father, I got leave next month. Really? What will you do? Just rest at home. Spend time with family. My daughter added, I'm on break too. Let's go to the Taedong River together. Ordinary conversation. But a thought came to me. Would these children have to live like this their whole lives? Would my son spend his life like his father, writing reports and reading the room? Would my daughter marry and raise children in the same anxiety? Would my grandchildren live this way too? I put down my spoon mid-meal. What's wrong? Are you sick? No, just thinking. My wife looked at my face, worry in her expression. That night in bed, my wife asked, You're troubled about something, aren't you? Yes. Tell me. We're married. I hesitated a long time before speaking. Is it right to live this way our whole lives? Why are you suddenly saying that? Is it right to make our children live this way? Our grandchildren? My wife grabbed my hand. Don't say scary things. Even the walls have ears. The words jolted me awake. She was right. I had to be careful even in our own home. The apartment walls were thin. Our neighbors were all officials. You never knew who might be listening. Sorry. I'm just tired. Get some rest. You have work tomorrow. She didn't ask more, but I knew. She was thinking the same thing. The next morning on my way to work, I saw No Guangchol. He'd come to the office earlier than usual, sitting alone at his desk, organizing documents. I greeted him as I passed. Good morning. I know, yeah. I looked at his face. He'd lost weight. His eyes had changed. Before, they held confidence. Now uncertainty. I walked past him to my seat, turned on my computer. A new work directive was waiting. Kim Ju-a public activity recording guidelines. I opened the document. The precautions filled the page. Record all movements accurately. Specify distances from surrounding personnel. Report any contact immediately. Thoroughly document photos and videos. Report any contact immediately. Reading that line, I understood. The No Guangchul incident had become internal policy. His mistake was now a warning to all officials. I stared at the screen. I'll make a mistake someday too. And someone will report me. Then it hit me. I can't keep going like this. For the first time, the thought became clear. In this country, in this system, no matter how careful you are, you eventually become expendable. Today it's no Guangchul. Tomorrow it's me. The day after, my son. It never ends. At lunch, I went to the bathroom. Sat in a stall alone. Defection. The word came to mind. A word I'd never seriously considered in my life. I was from a loyal family, part of Pyongyang's privileged class, a party official. Defection was what enemies and traitors did. That's what I'd been taught. But now I understood. Defection wasn't betrayal. It was survival. About 2 months later, No Guangchul disappeared. One day, he just didn't come to work. No one spoke about it, but everyone knew. A few days later came the official announcement. Comrade No Guangchul is resting at a provincial sanatorium for health reasons. That was all. His position was filled by another official. His name disappeared from meeting minutes, as if he'd never existed. But I knew. He was gone, but records about him remained. Somewhere in a file, in a report, in a document. No Guangchul pegged to bloodline contact controversy, one incident. A single line like that would be stored somewhere. And when needed, they'd pull it out again. North Korea doesn't punish people immediately. They record. They save. They wait. Then when there's personnel restructuring, power struggles, or the need for a scapegoat, they pull out those records. This person had this problem in the past, and it's over. No chance to defend yourself. It's already documented. After that day, I looked at myself. What was recorded about me? 25 years working for the party. Hundreds of reports written. Dozens of field guidances accompanied. Tried to live without mistakes. But perfection wasn't possible. Surely somewhere in someone's report, there was a sentence with my name. Comrade made an inappropriate remark during a meeting. An error was found in Comrade's report. Comrade requires attention at event. These sentences would be piled up somewhere. Right now, no problem. But someday when I became unnecessary, when someone wanted to remove me, those sentences would be summoned. And I'd disappear like No Guangchul. For health reasons, transferred to the provinces or studying. One evening when I came home, my wife asked, "What happened to Secretary No?" "I heard he went to the provinces." "Really?" "That's what they say." She didn't ask more. We knew from just looking at each other what the provinces really meant. My son was watching TV in the living room. Korean Central TV was showing the news. Kim Jong-un doing field guidance. Kim Ju-ae was beside him, smiling. My son spoke. "Comrade Ju-ae is appearing a lot these days." "Yeah, she'll probably become the leader later." I looked at my son. Would this child spend 30, 40 years living like this too? Writing reports for Kim Ju-ae, raiding the room, being careful. And his children would do the same for the next leader. It never ended. That night in bed, I thought about it. Defection. The word came to mind more often now. But it wasn't easy. I lived in central Pyongyang. Was a party official. Surveillance was tight. I had a family. Wife, son, daughter. Go alone, family stays behind. Then they'd be punished. Go with family, nearly impossible. 4 people disappearing at once would trigger immediate pursuit. But I couldn't keep living this way. I knew my turn would come someday. The next day, I started carefully gathering information. Defection routes. Brokers. Costs. Couldn't ask directly. Had to do it indirectly, very carefully. Border security is tight these days. How's the situation in China? That kind of thing. About a month later, a colleague spoke carefully. "Comrade, do you know anyone who moves goods to China?" "Why?" "Someone I know is looking." We looked at each other. Didn't say more. But we understood what goods meant. And I made my decision. I have to go. Fall 2023, I finished all my preparations, connected with a broker, confirmed the route, arranged the money. But the hardest part was the decision. Go alone or go with family? In the end, I decided to go alone. Taking the whole family was impossible. 4 Pyongyang officials disappearing at once would trigger immediate pursuit. And honestly, the success rate was low. So I thought this way. I'd go first, settle safely in South Korea, then find a way to bring my family later. But how naive that thinking was, I'd learn later. The night before leaving, I ate dinner with my family as usual. My wife, son, daughter, none of them knew. I'm going on a provincial business trip tomorrow. When will you be back? About a week. A lie. For the first time in my life, I lied to my family like this. But I couldn't tell them. Telling them would put them in danger. Early morning, I left home. My wife came to the door. Be careful. I will. I looked at my wife's face one last time, then turned away. Going down in the elevator, tears came. A 55-year-old man, a party official. Going down crying. Met the broker and got in the car. Left Pyongyang, headed north, toward Ryanggang province. In the car, I watched through the window. North Korean land passed by. Mountains, fields, villages. The country where I was born and raised. At night, the car stopped. From here, we walk. The Tumen River was close. The broker led. I followed. Careful in the darkness. River sounds ahead. There. We crossed during patrol shift change. How long do we wait? About an hour. Waited in the darkness. That hour felt like a day. During that time, I thought, was my wife sleeping now? Did my son and daughter sleep well? Tomorrow morning when I don't come back, what will they think? And later when they learn I defected. I didn't want to imagine. Let's go. We went down to the river. The water was cold. Autumn, so the water level was low, but the current was strong. Crossing a river at 55 wasn't easy. Halfway across, my leg cramped. Hang on. Just a bit more. The broker grabbed my arm. I made it across. Stepped onto Chinese soil. Completely out of breath. You made it. Hearing those words, I collapsed. North Korea was visible. Across the river in the darkness. My country. And I realized I could never go back. I hid in a Korean Chinese family's home in China. They gave me food, clothes, a place to rest. You must have been through so much. Rest well. Thank you. We're the same blood. It's nothing. That night, lying in bed, I stared at the ceiling. Thought about my family. Did they know I was gone by now? Had the party started investigating? Was my family being punished? Guilt washed over me. But relief, too. No more writing reports. No more reading the room. No more surveillance. I hid in China for 3 months. Public security crackdowns were severe. Couldn't move. That period was the hardest. Not North Korea, not South Korea. Hiding without belonging anywhere. Finally made contact with the South Korean consulate. The route went through a third country to South Korea. Went to Southeast Asia. Waited again there. And finally, early 2024, I boarded a flight to South Korea. When the plane took off, tears came. I'd survived. Arrived at Incheon Airport in winter. Walking out of the airport, cold wind blew. But that wind felt like freedom. Spent 3 months at Hanwon. South Korean life education. Cultural adaptation. Psychological counseling. At first, everything was unfamiliar. Convenience stores open 24 hours. Supermarkets overflowing with goods. Being able to search for North Korean news on the internet. And most of all, not risking your life over a single word. After leaving Hanwon, I got a small apartment. Slowly adapted with government support. Had to relearn Korean. Same language, but different accent. Many different words. You're from North Korea? Yes. That must have been hard. People were warm, but also awkward. I'd lived my whole life as Pyongyang elite. Here I was just a defector. A few months later, I came across news about North Korea. Watched Korean Central TV online. Kim Jong-un doing field guidance. Kim Joo-ae beside him. Watching that, I thought, how many people are tense for that production? Did someone else make a mistake? What happened to No Guangchul? And how is my family doing? At night, sitting alone, I looked at family photos. The only thing I brought when I defected. Wife, son, daughter. All smiling in the photo. Would I ever see these people again? If reunification came, could we meet? Or would we stay separated like this forever? One day, I went to a defector gathering. Met people in similar situations. Everyone had left something behind in North Korea. Family, friends, hometown, memories. Reunification must come. An elderly person said, will we see reunification in our generation? I don't know. I don't know either. But I think we need hope. Now I'm telling my story. No Guangchul's story. The story of North Korea's system. Testifying to the terror of records. Why? Because I thought you should know. North Korea doesn't punish people immediately. They record. They save. They pull it out when needed. One mistake, one sentence, it follows you your whole life. And everyone watches each other, stays careful, holds their breath. If Kim Joo-ae becomes the successor, what will happen? How many more No Guangchuls will there be? How many more families will be separated? I'm living in South Korea now. A place where I can speak freely, move freely, think freely. But I'm not completely free. Many nights I can't sleep thinking about the family I left in the north. Many days I cry thinking about home. The pain of division. The elders who lived through the Korean War know it best. The pain of families separated. The sadness of leaving your hometown. I'm experiencing that now. But I testify to North Korea's truth, to the system's terror, and to the preciousness of freedom. If reunification comes someday, can I see my family again? I'll tell them then, I'm sorry, and I love you, everyone. There are still countless no Gwangchols in North Korea. People anxious over one mistake. People trembling because of records. And like my family, people who had no choice but to stay. I hope this story reaches you. To inform you of North Korea's reality. To feel the preciousness of freedom. To think about the necessity of reunification. Even today, I search for North Korean news online. Watch footage of Kim Joo-ae. Watch the officials standing beside her. Those people are tense too. Will they someday think about escaping like I did? And I pray for my family's safety, for reunification, for us to meet again. This is my story. The story of one man who was a Pyongyang official. One father who chose freedom. Thank you.